So here we are with Kathleen Potton, and she is a singer and songwriter from Tamworth
Originally.
in
Yep.
Australia.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell
Long
me
way
about
from home.
Tell me about Tamworth.
Tamworth. It's kind of a small town, but not a small town.
How many pubs?
About 10,
Oh, that's
15.
a lot.
But it's been good 15 years since I've lived there.
Yeah.
So it's changed a lot. Every time I go back, it doesn't feel like... It feels the same, but it doesn't feel the same, you know? So it's like having a dream version of your hometown when you go back. So
Do you know the Cold Chisel song Flame Trees?
no,
Ah,
probably should know it.
to check that out.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's a lot of country sort of songs that I don't really know, just because if you grow up in Tamworth, you either love country music or you hate it. And unfortunately, I was in the latter.
Well, it's not country music, but it's just a story about returning to your hometown in Australia.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good song.
No worries.
And so it was a bit sleepier when you grew up though?
Not sleepy. I mean, there's a lot of music happening, a lot of like music theatre and classical music. There was a really good conservatorium there. I think there still is. And had lots of opportunities to perform and sing around Tamworth. I was in a really great vocal ensemble called Sweet Gossip, and we had a really fantastic teacher who did these amazing vocal arrangements, and we got to go to like school spec and sing at the Opera House, and did lots of... It was almost like a gospel kind of group.
Who else was singing in that?
There was mostly people from my school. Well, it was a school thing. I think Gabriella Bonhamo, I don't know if you know her.
I know Dave Goodman and I know Felicity Urquhart.
Okay, it was the same... No, not the same school as Felicity, but around that same kind of time that she was there.
I did a gig with Felicity once in an RSL club.
In Tamworth?
No, in Sydney. She was
okay.
the third act. I think the second act was a juggler and the first act was a puppeteer.
Right.
And Felicity came on.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, she's great.
I was in the house band.
Right. We were in a musical together we did The Sound of Music, and I played Gretel. And she played the second oldest girl. I can't remember the name of the character. So
In school?
Yeah. No. It was like the Tamworth Musical Society, the production of The Sound of Music.
Oh.
So, I was like, I think 8 or something. So yeah, she was my big sister. So that's how I knew Felicity.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was, a while ago now. But
And what about Dave Goodman? Did you know him? Did you ever meet him?
no, everyone asked me that.
He was a long time.
Yeah, I think he was a few years older than me, so I don't think I knew him.
I remember when he came to Sydney, his parents drove him down from Tamworth in the car and delivered him to my house.
Delivered him?
Well, I was living there and he shared a house with me.
Oh, okay.
So he came down, him and his mum and dad came down from Tamworth.
I love that
with a little 18-year-old aspiring drummer from the country. So were your parents farmers or?
No, my parents, they run a printing business. And, but because Tamworth's not really that small, like it's not that much of a country town. So that, they ran this printing business, and my dad played pretty good guitar. And so he and my mum both are the ones that sort of encouraged me to sing and to play music, and they had very different kinds of ideas of what music looks like. My mum's, she loved like Ella and Benny Goodman and all that kind of music. And Dad was into Bob Dylan and Leonard Cohen and the Beatles, and so had with both of those kind of influences that sort of helped me to really decide to pursue music, I guess.
And you just didn't like country music at all?
Well, it was mostly that I never really heard the good stuff. Like in Country Music Week, they close off the main street in Tamworth, and everyone just comes and busks, and so you get people from these little tiny towns in the middle of nowhere who can play like maybe 2 chords very badly out of tune. And for me, that was what country music was. So even though it was a great atmosphere and vibe, I was just kind of like, oh, this doesn't sound like music. And it was only when I kind of moved to Sydney and moved here that I heard music that was country music, but that was like amazing, you know. It was really exciting and inspiring, and so. But unfortunately, I still have that kind of little kind of every time I hear like the steel guitar thing, it's kind of like gotta try to get that feeling out. So
that's funny.
Yeah.
I saw Willie Nelson in New York one time. It was great.
Yeah, I heard he's amazing.
Everyone from Texas had showed up.
Oh, blimey.
So it reminded me of a B&S ball in Sydney. There was still all these kind of country folks, but we were in the middle of New York City.
Yeah. And
then he the first song he always sings is Whiskey River, Take My Mind. He held up his glass of whiskey and said, Whiskey River, take my mind. Everyone went crazy like it was a B&S ball. It was funny. Man.
I had a listen with Amy London, and she said that he's, you know, check him out, like he's just amazing to watch. He's an incredible storyteller.
Very, very deep.
Yeah.
It was like seeing Miles Davis. I thought it was sort of.
Yeah.
It was very, very deep.
Yeah.
And his band was, you know, his sister plays the piano, and his band's been with him forever and ever, and very special.
Yeah.
Getting to see that.
Yeah.
So you did you learn the piano or the guitar, or what happened when you were a kid?
Yeah. I played the piano. I think I did grade 7, and I also played the viola very, very briefly. I wanted to play in the orchestra in the local Tamworth youth orchestra. And so I basically walked up to the director and said, what instruments do you need? And he said viola. He said viola. I was like, okay, I'll learn the viola. So I was very bad. I would follow the bow markings rather than actually reading the notes. I'd just be like, okay, we're going up now, we're going down, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
And you were just playing any notes you felt like?
Well, kind of. Like I sort of, like I would always know when the open strings were. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to play that. Because it's a different clef and everything. So
it's hard.
It was like a whole new learning curve. But I mean, it was fun. It was great to be part of an ensemble like that and play with other musicians. And we did a few tours and stuff like that. So it was fun. You know, I think we had so many opportunities in Tamworth that kind of looking back now, I really realised I was quite lucky. So
there aren't those sort of opportunities in Bedford Stuyvesant.
Really?
There's no music in public schools here, and
gosh,
you have to pay for it, and you know it's very different. Very different.
Wow.
To what you can get in Australia without much money.
Yeah. I mean, we had so many, like with school we had this vocal ensemble, and then at the conservatorium I was part of this orchestra, and that was free, and touring, it was great, you know. Helped me learn to, you know, read a different clef and be a part of an ensemble and hear orchestral music, so it was great.
And did you go to music school when you finished school?
No, when I finished school I travelled for a year. I went to London and backpacked and did the Australian thing. And then I came back and wasn't really sure I wanted to pursue music. Actually, I was kind of a little bit lost, and I actually went to art school and have a Bachelor of Fine Arts.
In Sydney?
Yeah, at COFA, College of Fine Arts.
College of Fine Arts, where's that?
In Paddington.
Oh right, okay, near the DOV cafe, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, across the road from the Dove. Maybe it's changed now.
I think so. I don't know, it's been a while since I was there. But yeah, it's just off of, what's that main road?
Victoria Street and Darlinghurst Road. Come down and they run down to Oxford Street.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's probably it.
Near the St Vincent's Hospital.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So I was there for 4 years. And then went to art school, and when I came out of it, knew that I really wanted to study music. So, and then I had an opportunity to study in Singapore. So it was kind of debating whether I should go to ANU or to Singapore, and the Singapore option seemed more exciting at the time. So, you know, and I got a scholarship.
Because Vince Jones taught there, or?
Well, I knew I wanted to do vocal jazz, and I think at the Sydney Con, I don't think they took singers at the time, or if they did, it was like hard to get into, so I just kind of ruled it out. And then I think because I was having singing lessons, and my teacher said, well, ANU's good.
Who was that with?
Patricia Ortel. So
in Sydney.
Yeah. And she was the one that told me about this one in Singapore as well. She said, look, if you want to try something really different, it's pretty easy to get a scholarship. Why don't you try there? And I came home and told Craig, I was like, guess what Patricia said, you know, move to Singapore. And he was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, that'd be really fun, really exciting. So that's what we did.
Craig's your husband, right?
Yeah.
Were you married then?
Yeah, we just got married.
So you've been married a while now, have you?
Yeah, it'll be 9 years in November.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nice. And he's Australian, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And what does he do?
He's an IT auditor, so he audits the IT systems of the company he works for and makes sure people can't hack into them and stuff. And
So he has a computing...
yeah, he's a computer nerd, basically.
Is he doing that here? Is he working...
Yeah, he works for, at the moment, Credit Suisse. So
Right.
it's a bank. Yeah, so that's kind of how I'm able to be here, because of that
He
visa.
got a visa? Does he have an E3 visa?
No, he's on an L1 visa.
L1?
And he's switching now to an E3 though, because he's moving companies.
Right.
So it's like that's the Australian visa.
Yeah.
So I get the spousal one of that.
And you can
So-
work anywhere or do anything on that visa,
Yeah,
right?
it's like being on a green card. It's fantastic.
And it's easy to get. You don't really need a lawyer almost to do it. Or are you going to use a lawyer?
I think his
company's
company
gonna pay.
gives us a lawyer, or
Yeah.
they use their lawyers or whatever. So
Mm.
yeah.
My wife had one of those visas for a while, E3. She used to do it herself.
Oh really?
Mm-hmm.
Brave woman.
Yep. It's not that difficult. It's really, there's not a lot of paperwork involved and
Radio.
it's quite easy. Yeah. You just
Yeah.
put your job offer into the Department of Labour,
Wow.
and then if they approve you, then you just take that and you fill out one-page application. You go to the embassy in Sydney, and then they interview you, and you know,
Right.
most people get it.
Right.
If the Department of Labour approves your labour certificate, most people just get it.
Right.
Because they give out 10,000, and I think they only ever get rid of 6,000, or there's more of those visas than there are Australians wanting to get them.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because
Yeah.
there's a quota specifically for Australians,
And they're not meeting it.
But the O1 visa is there's a quota for the whole world. There's not a quota for Australians.
Right.
So it's probably a bit harder to get one of
Yeah.
those.
So we're really lucky as Australians here, I think. So
Mm.
there's lots of friends I've got lots of friends from Europe that are trying to get visas, and
It's hard.
it's nowhere near as easy. I
Mm.
think, so
So have you
quite
been
lucky.
working here, like doing another job or other than music? Or?
Yeah, I mean, just the usual, like working in a cafe, and
Whereabouts?
I was at a place called Juliet in
Mhm.
Williamsburg.
Mhm.
So I was New York's worst waitress.
Were you?
So yeah, I'm terrible, but it was fun. I mean, met the nicest people,
Mm.
and it was exciting to be. It's fast paced, and a few celebrities would come in, so that would make it kind of interesting. So do that, and just a few like admin jobs here and there, and it's
Have you done
usual
that
kind
sort
of
of
stuff.
anything other than music in Australia as well? What jobs have you done in Australia?
I was working, like just doing admin kind of stuff, like secretarial stuff while I was studying. So, but then, I mean, I'm working as a waitress and things while I was studying as well. So,
In Australia?
yeah.
What's the difference between working as a waitress in Sydney and in New York?
Well, it's the whole tips thing here, so there's that kind of
nicer.
cheesy factor. Yeah, it's just a little bit, I think, of sort of falseness, like it's, I don't know, I think people seem to think that if you have tips here, then they're going to work harder. But I kind of disagree. Like, I feel like in Australia, you sort of, you're getting a decent salary.
You're happy on the inside.
Yeah, and like, you're not sort of being exploited like people here are doing. They're just working for tips alone. They're not even getting an hourly rate and stuff.
So what was the hourly rate that you got paid at that job? Do you remember?
In Sydney.
No.
I was
at Juliet.
Oh, it was like minimum wage, and then some days it was.
What's the minimum wage here?
$7.25, I think.
$7.25 an hour.
Yeah. So, and then they take out, tax and all the other stuff. So.
And what sort of shifts would you do? 9 to 5 or 10 to 6?
The weekends would be like 9 till 5 kind of thing, and then evenings is like maybe 6 till 1, something like that, depending on what day it was or what the function was. It varies. Some days, if it was really slow, you'd get maybe like $30, and then other days
for a day's work.
Yeah, it was shocking. And then if it was a good day, like I think the best one I got was like $4.50. So, but that was for like a wedding. Yeah, so that kind of thing. It's kind of lucky. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean it's good. But you bust your ass as well. Like you're walking up stairs and carrying a million plates and stuff, and so I'd be exhausted to come home, and I just wouldn't feel like practicing or doing anything. I'd be exhausted. So it's good to get out.
You did some study in Singapore.
Mhm.
And tell me about that. you did a vocal major and you have a jazz degree or a music degree or what?
Yeah, I have it's a diploma of jazz studies, majoring in jazz performance.
How many years was that?
That was 2 years, and had basically all Australian teachers. They were all over there.
All Australian?
Yeah, because it was a really
like her.
It was a sweet deal. Tim O'Dwyer was one of the teachers. He was like the head of the department. Lindsay Vickery and Darren Moore was a Perth player. Yeah. So there were a lot of teachers.
Really?
Yeah. It was kind of cool actually. So.
It's nice.
Yeah, it was nice because it was a really new course as well, so you could sort of make it up as you went along. So if you wanted to really focus on, if you wanted to take electives in gamelan music or something like that, you could. I mean, I didn't, but there was also electronic music you could do as well. They have a really good technology department. A guy from NYU.
School has a bit of money.
Yeah, there's a lot of money in the arts in Singapore. The government fund it really, really, really well. So there was lots of opportunities there to make money, especially for musicians. They're like all the gigs pay very, very well. Even ones that aren't like really good, you can still make quite a bit of money. And I think that's almost to the detriment. I think people don't do it for the sake of making good music after a while. There's a lot of musicians there that just play
because it's easy.
It's easy and you make money. They're not really pushing themselves. So, but I hear things are changing there quite a bit now. I think they're not getting funded as much. So I think it's really something to the musicians that are really stepping up to make some really beautiful music. So,
it's difficult, that thing with music in particular, of just getting a financial reward for your effort that changes over time.
Yeah.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
But did you do some gigs in Singapore?
Yeah, I was working at a hotel for a couple of years there, like various hotels, 6 nights a week. Just playing and singing.
While you were studying, or?
Some for when I was studying, and then when I finished, I worked.
Spent another year there?
Yeah, I spent another 2 years there actually.
Wow.
On and off. Yeah, so I mean it was great.
What did Craig do while you were doing that?
He did the same job. Yeah, he was working with his company, and they actually transferred us here. That was kind of when we first came to New York. We came for a friend's 30th.
There's a lot of banks there. Is Credit Suisse, did you say? Lots of banks in Singapore, right?
It's a very a big business hub. So he had a great time. Lots of opportunities there. So it was good for both of us actually being in Singapore.
And what musicians were you working with in that hotel?
I was just playing by myself. I was playing piano and singing. You heard my dodgy piano playing before.
Sounded good.
Yeah, well,
good enough.
They were cheapskates, so they were like, they heard I could tinker around a little bit, so they said, let's.
Well, that must be great for you.
It was good. I wish I'd taken more, taken an advantage of it, like to learn proper voicings and to memorise things better. And I don't think I really utilised the opportunity that I had there. So, because looking back now, if I had that opportunity now, I could go crazy with it, especially now. Because I'm studying my masters at the moment, so if I could take that information now and go back and
where are you
do something with it, at Queen's College.
Oh,
yeah. So
it's a community college, right?
Yeah, it's great.
And you're just paying. You didn't get a scholarship. It's like, was it $6,000 a semester or something that close?
It's a little bit less because I'm not an international student. I pay.
Oh, because you're
local,
a resident. Yeah.
Because I worked for a year before I studied, so then I could be a local resident. So it's about $3,000 a year. But I think for Australians,
a year, $3,000 a year.
Oh, sorry, $3,000 a semester.
So there's 2 semesters in a year, right?
Yeah.
So $6,000 a year.
Yeah. So I think for non-local residents, it's like $6,000 or something a semester. So I think considering that it's quite cheap and you get really, really good education, good opportunities, great teachers.
Is Jacob Manrick's teaching there?
No.
Antonio Hart?
Yeah, he's amazing. He's an incredible teacher for improv. He's an awesome teacher. Yeah, and then David Berkman's the other one that stands out. He's amazing. Yeah, he's really just a great teacher. He's inspiring. He knows how to adapt his lesson plans to accommodate the student. And
good person.
Oh, he's amazing. I've learnt a lot from him. So, yeah, definitely. Happy to be.
Tell me what you've learned. On a spiritual level. From a guy like that.
From God.
From a guy like that. I mean, I'm not talking about Jesus Christ, but I just mean in terms of just non-theoretical aspects of music. If that makes sense. Spiritual's maybe a bad word.
He's just I'm trying to think of the right word. Like he makes you realise that you are okay where you're at. Like if this is, you may not know everything, and there's, basically the more I've learnt, the more I realise I don't know. But he's allowed you to feel like that's okay. You just should take it slowly, learn one step at a time, and that it sort of puts you in a place where it allows you to learn more. If you know what I mean, like. If you're okay with where you're at, rather than feeling like you need to learn 1,000 songs and internalize all of these changes and stuff, then you stress yourself out. You're not gonna do it. So I think that's probably the nicest thing I've learned from him. And then of course there's all the harmonic stuff as well. Like he's just great at teaching harmony. Really simplifies everything and dumbs it down for me a little bit, I guess.
So you learn voicings, and are you expected to kind of learn a chunk of voicings in different keys?
Kind of. He doesn't really teach the piano subject there. Potton does.
Jeb, right?
Yeah. He teaches the Harmony 1, Harmony 2 courses there. And so more about first Harmony 1's more about learning functional harmony and how you use that. You try to reharm something using functional harmony. Harmony 2 is more about learning non-functional harmony, and so you spend a lot of time transcribing and then reharmonizing a lot of standards using the techniques that he uses, and
cool.
So it was really but he presents it in a way that makes it interesting. I've learnt some of that stuff in doing my diploma, but didn't really sink in the same way. So he's got a good teaching technique.
He's probably taught a lot of people.
But he's good at saying things a different way. Some teachers have a lesson plan and they just stick with it regardless of whether the student needs to hear that or anything. He will hear where you're at and then say it one way, and if it hasn't registered, then he'll change it and put in another way. So
do you have a singing teacher there as well?
I have Sharon A. Wade as one of my teachers at the moment, and I had JD Walter for my first semester. So they were both amazing. Learnt a lot of things from them. JD's more not clinical, but he's he's like right brain kind of teacher. So he's really good at explaining stuff, whereas Shanae is just kind of internalises it and really feels it, and so she'll just sing back something to you and she just do that and you'll be like, okay, so they're both, with the two of them together, I've learnt quite a lot, I think.
So do you feel like you've improved a lot as a musician, as a singer, or is it going to take a long time for that stuff to be absorbed, or? I hope I've gotten better. I never feel like I'm at the place that I want to be, but I think a lot of musicians feel like that. It's like you're chasing a carrot and you're never going to reach the carrot even when you're dead. But I think that's what's exciting about music, that you're always going to be trying to get better and better, and you'll never ultimately reach that goal. But that you keep trying for it is the most important thing. But yeah, I think I've slowly gotten better, and it's almost so slowly you don't realise it. But and did you play much music in Sydney? Did you perform there, or did you hear a lot of music in Sydney?
Not really. I'd go CeeLo music. So I remember seeing Solomon Burke at Metro. What was that place on George Street?
The Metro Theatre?
The Metro, yeah. I remember seeing him there, and that was amazing. But I wasn't really singing, I wasn't really taking music seriously back in Sydney. You
were really just studying at art school then?
Yeah.
Were there musical people at art school that you spent time? Did you find yourself?
Yeah, not at art school, I played with a few different people, but not Steve Crane. I used to play with him a little bit, so that was lovely. And he was actually really supportive when I said I wanted to go and study.
He said go.
He did, but he was kind of like, but don't leave Sydney. I want you to stay here. So I was like, but he was always the most encouraging. You know,
That's nice.
Yeah, he's really good at. I never felt like I was, you know, too dumb to sing with him, because he'd always, you know, be very understanding and explain things very well. You know, a very generous guitar player, I think. So, but yeah, I wasn't really doing music back in Sydney in the same way I was here.
So you went to Singapore, and you were there for 4 years, and then you practically just came straight here from Singapore.
Yeah, I didn't go back to Australia.
And when did you first get to New York?
The first time I first moved here was in 2010.
2010.
Towards the end of 2010. I came for 3 months or so at the beginning of 2010, just to sort of check it out and see.
And decide?
Yeah, and see if we could make it work. And and obviously we decided we could do it.
To give it a go.
Yeah. So it was such a big change. Living in Singapore was a totally different lifestyle, you know, everything was easy. New York, I love it, but it's not easy. And even though I know I have it much easier than most, I think.
What's hard about it?
I mean, making money is kind of hard. You have to work in a restaurant to sort of make ends meet, that kind of thing. So that can be a little bit deflating, and you know, you want to spend all your time doing music. You can't really do it. And it's just that it's become so overwhelming, I think, in New York. There's like 1,001 different musicians here. But I think that's also what makes it so exciting, you know, like there's so much going on.
It's psychologically difficult to deal with the amount of talent.
Yeah.
I find it stressful.
Yeah. But I think, you know...
And they keep coming here every year.
There's always a new amazing singer.
Another one. Damn.
No.
Yeah, I thought you think you might have a hope, and then 10 more people show up who are even more talented than anyone
and
that
20
lives
years younger than you or something.
Here,
Yeah.
So.
So.
Little good-looking kids with talent pouring out of them.
Bastards. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard to cope with. But it is inspiring.
Yeah.
Do you find that having to work and have a day job, etc., has that sapped your enthusiasm for music, or are you still just as equally inspired as when you came? Or
fluxes. You have like...
Did you feel uninspired in Singapore?
It was a different kind of uninspired. It was... I think because I was working, I was like, yeah, I'm a musician, blah, blah, blah. And...
So that gave your self-esteem a bit of a boost, is that what you mean?
It did, but I don't think I was creatively that... Inspired. Whereas here, I mean, even if I was, you know, working at my day job or whatever, and you know, just being in New York, you sort of realise you can't just take it lightly. You don't just you know, choose to be a musician, you know, just as a off decision. So so I think, you know, I do have days where I don't feel that inspired, but I think as long as you see other people who are doing a day job as well and doing music, and you realise it's doable, and you can still make music. So
there's a lot of people.
Just got to find that balance. I think it's kind of difficult to do.
David Binney told me he had a day job for 10 years.
Really?
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of people have been through that.
Yeah.
I think these days.
Yeah. I remember reading that Sheila Jordan worked as a secretary for like 40 years.
Yeah.
You know, and she's Sheila Jordan, so.
Yep.
I kind of, when I read that, I was like, okay, this is okay. It'll be all right. But yeah.
And did you have any sort of goals when you came here? I mean, was there a reason why you came, or what did you think was going to happen when you arrived?
I wasn't really sure. I knew I wanted to study. I think, because I came in 2009 for a friend's 30th and fell in love with the city and saw the music that was happening. I was like, hey, this is where I've got to be, and I've really got to step it up. And it's the kind of music, like you learn, you know, going to school and stuff, but you learn equally as much as going to the gigs and going to the sessions and stuff. So I really wanted to be a part of that. So I knew when I came here that I wanted to study, and I wanted to sort of see the scene and be a part of it. So, and that was a decision that took couple of years to happen, but we made it happen.
So you feel connected to the musical community here in some way?
Yeah, somewhere. It took a little while to kind of get in. I don't feel like I'm solidly in because it's constantly shifting as well. But I'm starting to feel more a part of it, and yeah.
Have you ever felt like a part of a musical community anywhere else in the world?
I did in Singapore.
Singapore?
Yeah, it's small, very, very close knit community. You know, it's kind of nice. It's like a big, lovely family. You know, everyone's supportive, everyone's encouraging, and it's really mixed. It's really diverse. You get some amazing musicians there. There's a bass player there who's originally from Ohio, who's just, you know, he's played with, you know, Stevie Wonder and Wynton Marsalis, and he's incredible. And he's amazing. But then there's also the people who are just out of school who didn't really pay much attention and stuff, and they're part of it. But everyone's like supporting each other and caring for each other, and it's really nice to have that, you know. I feel like we're starting to get that now. Well, I'm starting to find that now, but it took a little while to find. So,
how did you go making friends in New York?
Like, how did I do it, or
how did you find it? Was it hard, or harder in Singapore?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more Australians, I think, in Singapore, so it felt easier to connect. Yeah, we were so close, so.
Because you were all in school as well together.
Yeah, so that made it easier. And I think being in school, you find friends a lot more easily. But I remember feeling the first 6 months, maybe a year here, feeling really isolated. Yeah, I didn't really know anybody or feel really connected to anybody. And a lot of the people at school as well, they're here on visas, like they're only here for 2 years, maybe 3 years, and leaving. So you'd make friends with them and then they'd leave.
And they'd go.
So that was kind of hard. But
do you think that was good for you as a person, going through that?
Yeah, definitely. I think travelling is
sort
always...
of by yourself and anonymous. Did you like being anonymous?
No, not at all.
No?
No. But it's character building, so it's... Yeah. I think moving countries is one of the hardest things people can do. It's, you know... Apparently, I'm not sure, I remember reading somewhere that, you know, the death of a loved one and moving countries are kind of like the two most stressful things that can happen. I'm not sure how true it is, but I definitely find it stressful moving countries. You're starting from scratch. It's really hard. So.
Yeah. And so what have you learned about Americans culturally that you didn't know? Do you have any tips? Can you help me?
Yes, you need a calculator to do tips. I don't know. I think the way that they sort of... Like, Australians are so self-deprecating.
Yeah.
And I think I've learnt... You know, because I automatically will apologise for something constantly. Yeah. And I used to think that was just kind of like a nice thing, you know, and I think they see it as a way of weakness or as a...
Yeah.
And so I'm starting to admire the way that they can just, you know, plug themselves, you know, like... I think in Australia, you know, you would never kind of, you know, come to my show, I'm amazing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Americans here are just, well, you know, I do music and I want to be good, so...
I'm unapologetic about it.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good thing. Something I want to try to, you know, do more of, I guess. So.
I've got in trouble, like, being on the bandstand and then being self-deprecating because the other musicians take it personally.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If I say, sorry, man, I had a really bad gig and sorry, that really sucked, then they feel like... Because no one ever says that. Yeah. So they can only take that as being... They kind of take that personally. Like, what did I do wrong? You know? Even though it's... Yeah. You thought it was about in Australia, that it would just be normal to say something like that. So of other people would be like, get over it, you know? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and even joking around saying it's like, oh, you know, I'm a bit shit today. So yeah. Or even in Australia, it's acceptable to say, that gig sucked, didn't it? You know? As a joke. But you couldn't say that here. You'd be in deep trouble. Yeah, yeah. If you said, oh, that was a shambles, wasn't it? You couldn't say that here. They wouldn't understand for starters. They wouldn't get the joke. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and sense of humour thing is the other thing. You've got to know sarcasm and... So you have trouble people understanding your sense of humour? A little bit. I said something, I was in class probably about 3 months ago. We had this really great teacher come in, a recording sequencing subject. A really great teacher. Anyway, I was taking the piss out of him or something. Like he made some joke with one of the students to say, you know,
shouldn't hear them, or I can't remember exactly what happened. Anyway, so I just had a little joke around, and then he seemed to be really kind of upset, like a little bit kind of
pricked up,
and then he sort of dismissed the class really quickly and, you know, just told everyone to go. And I was like, oh, what happened? So anyway, I called up Craig and said, hey, does this sound offensive? Because I think he has a better gauge of what sounds appropriate and what doesn't. And he said, yeah, that's kind of a bit rude. So I was like, oh, okay. So I sent this guy an email saying, I'm really sorry, I've got a slightly different sense of humour from most people, and the accent's probably not helpful. And anyway, he was
people
really cool about it.
They don't even know that you're joking. That's the other issue. They don't hear the sarcasm in your tone of voice.
Yeah.
They just think you're serious.
Yeah. It's frustrating. I mean, that's why a lot of the Australians hang out with each other. It's refreshing after a while. You're
also supposed to be humble here, on one level. There's humility is also a virtue as well as being confident, and there's a fine line. And some of my humour involves me joking that I'm the best in the world as a joke.
Yeah.
And sometimes that gets taken the wrong way too.
So you can't be self-deprecating.
People think I'm serious, you know.
Oh, fuck it. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't.
Yeah, it's tricky.
It's not going to win.
It's hard to find the right...
Whereas when we try to be humble, that's when we, you know, self-deprecate. It's when we say we're a bit shit. Even though we don't really think that about ourselves, you know. It's hard.
It's tricky. So do you have any... Have your goals changed since you arrived in New York, or are things forming in your head about what you might want to do in the future?
Yeah, a little bit. I think I came here just thinking I'm going to study and then I'll figure it out. And I always, like, my goal was this kind of non-tangible thing of I just want to be a better musician, and I always want to try to keep getting better at that. Whereas now I think I want to start, I want to obviously start working on an album and recording and stuff, but Antonio Hart, like, he, you know, had a good chat with him, and he was saying, you know, you need a 5-year, 10-year plan. He's like, really get going with that. I was like, oh, okay, I need to try and figure that out. So, you know, I want to, you know, be playing obviously a lot more and trying to write a lot more, and I think the marketing side of it, I never really haven't got that sort of brain for marketing, so trying to really work on that a little bit more. So yeah, I guess they're still not real tangible goals, but they're definitely things I'm thinking about now. So
do you think Americans are more goal oriented than Australians?
I guess so. I'm not sure.
Do you think you need to have goals in life to have happiness? Can you be happy without having goals?
I don't know. When you look at like gypsies or something like that, and they seem to be completely happy and they're just living day to day, you know. I think it's good as long as they're kind of realistic goals. They make you happy, because when you achieve them, you have a sense of achievement. But I think for musicians, you know, we're constantly searching, constantly trying to achieve something that we'll never really achieve. Like, we want to be amazing, and the more you want to be amazing, the more you're going to stuff up, I think. You have to just keep ploughing away to a certain extent.
Do you have any sense that you'll perform in Australia in the future, or?
I don't really. I mean, I don't see us really going back.
Ever?
Well, not for a good few years. You know, we've talked about it, but you know, New York feels like
home. Tour and go back for Christmas and go back to Tamworth.
Oh yeah, go back to Christmas. Oh, definitely, but not to like live, and so it'd just be like for a month or so if I went back. I mean, definitely try to do a couple of gigs if I go back for like Christmas and stuff, but not like, you know, long term or anything like that. So.
Do you think you might have a family here? Can I ask you that question?
I don't know.
You haven't thought about it? You don't know what's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really talked about having a family, and probably should. I can't see us having a family in New York. I mean, I grew up in the country, so living in an apartment with kids just seems a little bit claustrophobic, you know.
With no parents to help you?
Yeah, so, you know, it's used to having a big family around me, so yeah, it's a bit strange.
Where's Craig's parents?
They live in Colorado, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, they live with...
Are they Australian?
Yeah, but his sister married an American, and they live in Colorado. They've got 4 kids, so they need a bit of help. So, yeah.
Have you been down there?
A couple of times. It's lovely there. It's great. but I don't want to live there.
Maybe you could move there and have a family.
No, it's a little bit too. Yeah, I think New York's the only place in America I want to be. So if I was going to have kids, I would like them to grow up in Australia, I think.
Where else in America have you been?
So Colorado and Utah. Utah for skiing.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Probably better than Australia. The hills are a bit higher.
Oh, I've never been skiing in Australia. I only learnt to ski a couple of years ago. I'm not the greatest skier, so...
In Australia, they've got a little hill with a bit of fake snow on it. and then maybe there's a bit of snow and then it rains because the hills aren't really high enough. And the snow washes away. So you've got to be there on the right day.
Oh, yeah.
When there's actually a bit of snow.
Yeah. Well, this last trip we went skiing in January and it was embarrassing. You know, I had like a little panic attack at the top of the mountain.
Did you?
Yeah, I had to go sideways down the mountain and at one stage like Craig was just yelling, he's just like, just go. I'm like, no. I just took my skis off and marched down the hill with my skis on my shoulder. Went to the pub and that was it. So it wasn't the greatest.
And tell me what Australian music you listened to when you were a kid. Was it all sort of Ella and Sarah and Bob Dylan and the Beatles?
Yeah, we didn't really listen to a lot of Australian music, to be honest. You know, it was like, I mean, I didn't really even have a radar of listening to like Michael Jackson or anything that was like really current. It was really kind of
you had your mum and dad's records, or? Yeah,
like I just listened to what they were listening to. And it was really only when I like left home and, you know, moved to London and moved to Sydney that I kind of really started, you know, getting into my own type of music that wasn't my parents'. You know, so it wasn't really Australian music that I listened to. You know, I was listening to a lot of rock, so like Lenny Kravitz. I remember being in love with him, and I had a bizarre collection of music. I was really into Tori Amos at one stage, and I love the idea that, you know, a woman was playing and singing, and I really liked that. And Ben Folds 5, and then the guy from Buena Vista Social Club. That was one of the first albums I bought. Ruben Gonzalez?
I can't remember his name. I saw that movie though, great movie.
Yeah, so it was his solo album. So that was the kind of music I was into, apart from all of the jazz stuff. So.
But why jazz music? At what age did you realise that you wanted to be a jazz singer?
What age? I was 25.
You were 25?
25, 24 when I really decided that's what I wanted to do.
Huh.
For some reason I hadn't really registered that.
Why jazz music?
I mean, I just loved Ella. Like, it wasn't really a case of going, this is jazz. It was just more
loved Ella.
I loved her songs and I loved the swing. All of that, like, the mum, you know, had a big collection of big band stuff, so like Benny Goodman, all that kind of stuff. And it was, I think it was more that it brought this feeling of comfort and you know, security. It felt like home. But I never really registered that that's what you could actually sing that music for yourself. It was like it didn't make any sense. And then it was only when I sort of moved to Sydney and was hanging out with other musicians and talking to them, and they were playing these tunes, and I was like, oh wow, this is amazing.
People can actually play those tunes.
Yeah, it's like, this is a legitimate thing. So, so I remember seeing Kurt Elling at the Basement. I think it was maybe in 2003 or something, and just was completely inspired because he was playing these old songs but just doing his own thing with them, and I thought that was incredible. And so that's kind of what sort of started the thing happening, because prior to that I just thought you only did musicals or classical music, and you know,
as a singer,
and I wasn't really into musical theatre, and I didn't have an opera sound and didn't particularly want to do opera, so it's kind of like,
you have to be 50 before you can do a gig or something.
Yeah, and I didn't, you know, I don't have the voice for it either, so it was, so that's kind of what started it, and then talking to Steve Crane, you know, he was like, you know, if you really want to do it, this is what you should go and do. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
It's nice.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? I'm lost. I am lost. It's too early in the morning.
It is too early for a Saturday morning.
For me, Kathleen. Well, while I'm thinking, you tell me your best New York story.
The best New York story.
Yeah.
It would probably be the first time we came to New York for this friend's 30th, because we there's probably about 20 friends, and so we all decided to hire a loft in New York in Soho, and it turns out there was a baby grand piano in the loft, and so Miranda came over for that. You know Miranda?
Yeah.
She came over for that trip, and she knew all of the Perth musos, and that's how I first met like Matt Dodrell and Sam and all those guys. So every night would just turn into this jam session. So people would come over. We'd have like a little cocktail bar that we'd set up, and
in your house.
In our loft, and that was basically like, some nights we just wouldn't go out. Like people would just come over and play. So you'd wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and there'd be people hanging and playing music. And for me, that was the best thing that's happened in New York. I think it was just this really it was beautiful. Just to, you just roll out of bed, and all of a sudden there's people playing. You know, it's gorgeous. So it was exciting. I loved it.
So you like having a community of Australians in New York? Yeah,
it's nice. I mean, I think if you grow up in a small town, you're used to having a community. So it's like a default thing. It's nice.
Is there another community outside of the jazz musicians or the musicians that you feel a part of in New York?
No, not really. It's mostly, I mean, they're the people that I hang out with the most. And
what about Craig? Does he have friends from work?
Yeah, a few people. But they're kind of very separate sort of things, you know. It's very different. And different hours and stuff as well, so. Does
he feel like that those Australian musicians are his friends too? Does he feel a part of that community, do you think?
I'm not sure. I don't think he feels quite as connected to it as
you do.
As I do. Yeah.
And tell me about writing music. You write music. When did you start writing music?
When I first went to Singapore. Oh no, actually, the first time I wrote a song was my audition for this college in Singapore. They said you had to write a song, so I was like, alright. So I did, and I found it kind of, I was surprised at how easy I found it, and at the same time how much I didn't know about it, you know. So but I've really enjoyed it so far. Like, I think because I had to do them for assignments, I just, you know, would start trying to do them before in the semesters and stuff, and before I knew it, I had like a whole collection, and yeah.
Are there songwriters that inspire you in particular? Tori Amos, you said, those sorts of people.
Oh, Joni Mitchell, I think.
Joni Mitchell
is definitely, particularly for lyrics, I find her the most interesting.
Inspiring.
Yeah.
Was that on at your parents' house when you were a kid, or that's something you
No,
found
that was
later?
a later time, Joni Mitchell. And mostly, like, I started off with Blue, the album Blue. I didn't even really know about the jazz ones until much later on, like Mingus and things like that. So, but like, I like to use her. I'm trying to write more vocalises, so I like. She's written some really great lyrics to like Goodbye Pork Pie Hat and all of those kind of things.
Centerpiece.
Yeah. Yeah. Did she write Centerpiece?
She wrote the words, I believe.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. And she's got another great blues, the Cleaner from Des Moines.
Dry Cleaner from Des Moines, yeah.
That's awesome. So the other one I like. Yeah.
Well, I feel like I've asked you a lot of questions, haven't I? Talked about a lot of stuff. Yeah. What do your parents think about you being over here, and they're happy for you to?
No, they want me to move back to Australia.
To Australia.
Yeah.
Even though, but you said your parents are in, or Craig's parents are in.
Yeah, Craig's parents.
And your parents are back in Tamworth.
Yeah.
They want you to come
back.
Yeah.
They spend 6 months in France and 6 months in Australia.
Your parents?
Yeah, they have a house in Bordeaux.
Do they have a French passport? Do you have a European passport yourself?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, so does my dad.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is he French or something?
No, he's English.
He's English? Oh, Potton?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's lucky. So you could go and live there?
Yeah, if I wanted to.
Is that on the cards?
Maybe. I think that's probably more likely than moving back to Australia. I think.
So your parents are going to be pretty unhappy?
Yeah. So, I mean, they want grandkids, all that kind of stuff, so, you know.
They want grandkids running around Tamworth?
Yeah, well, we wouldn't be in Tamworth, I think, if we moved back, so. But, yeah, they're supportive, but they're not I think they'd prefer it if I had something that was a bit more stable as a
than being a musician
career option. Yeah. I mean, they're always supportive, but you know, they always sort of let it slide every now and then. Oh, well, you know, when you go get a real job, blah blah blah.
I've heard that one before.
Yeah,
I've heard that
they mean
phrase.
well, but you know, sometimes it gets a bit much. So, yeah.
When the newspaper comes out and the job section comes out.
Yeah,
on
exactly. Slide over the newspaper, circle.
Yeah, the green highlight pen.
Yeah. It's not fun.
What about this job? All right. Well, so one more question, and then I'll let you go. And the question is, where are you going to be in 10 years' time? And make a guess, make a prediction, and hopefully we'll make another video in 10 years' time.
In 10 years' time.
So where are you going to be? What's your guess? What's going to be happening?
Can you have alternate lives?
No, you've got to make a guess. You've got to make a prediction. That's what this is about.
Bugger. I think we'll probably be in New York still, I think, in 10 years' time.
What? Just one more question. I know I said that was the last one, but if you decided to leave, what would make it time to leave? How would you know it was time? And if your life stayed exactly the way it is now for another 10 years, would you leave then? 2 questions.
I think it would have to be something external, like, you know, my family got sick, something like that. I think would be the, you know, my mum and my dad were ill, like seriously ill. Or I think if, you know, my goals for music changed, you know, if I didn't really want to do music. But you said if nothing changed, right?
Do you think you'll be a jazz singer in 10 years' time?
I hope so, yeah.
Or will you have a guitar and you'll be writing songs and sitting at the Rock and Music Hall?
Can't you do both?
You can do both, yeah.
I definitely want to be writing more songs.
The only reason why I asked that question is I've seen so many Australian girls in particular arrive here with all of the jazz standards, and Ella and Sarah.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later they had a guitar in their hands or were...
Yeah, you're right. I don't think I want to do that singer-songwriter thing. Like, I like writing music, but I do it more from a jazz
perspective.
Yeah, like I like the improvisation side of it. Like, that's the most important part. That.
What about the swing? Do you like the swing?
Definitely.
You like that? You like the jazz groove?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I'm not... I mean, yeah, I like rock, pop, all that kind of stuff as well, but I mean... You know, the swing... I mean, this is where it's at. Like, you know, you go to Smalls, you go to Fat Cat, you know, you hear the...
Have you ever sung in front of a rock band at Extreme Decibels?
Yeah, I was in a rock band here for the first year I was here. Because I couldn't be bothered to, like, organise my own gigs, so I joined a rock band and...
How was that?
Killed my ears. It was... I mean, it helped me figure out what I didn't want to do as well.
So it was a good experience?
Yeah, definitely. And it was... yeah, because I like every kind of music. That was the problem. So it helped me decide that I didn't really want to do this. And, you know, it was good. I gave it a good crack for a year, I think. So, but, you know, it's the loudness thing. I was hurting my voice a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
Trying to sing over the guitar amps and
stuff. I remember my lungs hurting after a gig once.
Really?
I was yelling, yeah. And
your lungs were hurting?
Yeah, because the PA was... I mean, you probably should give me a singing lesson. The PA was really bad and I was screaming.
Yeah, you can't compete. I think that's maybe one of the reasons singers go singer-songwriter, because if you just got a guitar, you can... It's a lot easier to feel connected to the music, I think, if you've just got, like, one instrument, and especially if it's acoustic.
It's very hard to sing over a drum kit.
Yeah.
Even when the PA is really great.
You know, it's just... Yeah.
It's a lot easier when there's no drums.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And no guitar amps.
Yeah.
Really
it's hard to hear it's hard to hear yourself.
Yeah.
And then your pitch goes.
Definitely.
Because you can't hear yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's really...
By the time you're singing loud enough to hear the note, it's too late to change it.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah. So, but I definitely would like to be, doing jazz. Still writing my own music, but I do want to be doing standards and I like, you know, doing rehums and arrangements and things like that. For me, that's really mean for me now. That's what I'm at. So yeah.
Oh, it's lovely. It was so nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
It's so lovely to hear your story. It's great. So we'll see what happens in 10 years' time.
Yeah, she'll be in Tamworth with 20 kids. No, that's not happening.
Singing country music.
God, no.
Like
Maybe.
a pub with no beer and all the kids are all running around.
Yes, with a stick with beer bottle lids on it. That's what we're
The
playing.
lagerphone.
What?
It's called the lagerphone.
It's got a name?
Yeah, it's a stick with the.
Nah, it's just a stick with beer bottles. Hasn't got a name?
It's called the lagerphone.
Probably. I'm just taking the piss. So.
All right.
All right, Sean Whaley.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.